All right, Jesse and Fire, welcome back to the channel. Now we're going to talk about the welterweight division today. Leon Edwards, Kamaru Usman, Masvidal, Colby. We're going to start off with a story about Leon Edwards, and then we're going to move over into different scenarios. What would be best for the UFC if people win certain fights? Because obviously Kamaru Usman's fighting Leon Edwards next. Masvidal's fighting Colby. We're going to talk about all that. But we're going to start with a story about Leon Edwards, because Dana White told a story today that, in my opinion, changes things in a major way. And you know what's crazy? It's a story I already knew. This is actually something I already knew. But hearing Dana say it again made me realize something that I'm not hearing anybody talk about him. And this is a very relevant thing as it relates to Leon Edwards going into a championship fight against Kamaru Usman that everybody needs to be thinking about. Bottom line. Also, in keeping with what this channel is like, I try to talk about fights, try to give you guys kind of original insights, and I also just tell you guys what's going on in my life, because I just feel like I'm talking to a bunch of my buddies. That's how I treat the channel. And I have COVID, just FYI, like actively as we speak. So if I seem like my brain is not connecting things very well, like I'm cool, I've been, taking treatments, I've been doing treatment, I feel all right, but my brain is foggy, man. But anyway, if you like the content, subscribe and ring the bell. I just did a major upgrade on my sound, so hopefully it sounds much, much better. And I did that for you guys. Also, doing a big sweepstakes when we hit 50,000 subscribers, which should happen pretty soon here. And I already picked two winners, but there are going to be two random ones. I picked two that were people who have been with me from the beginning. I think one of them was like my 100th subscriber or something like that. Anyway, but yeah, get subscribed and you'll be in the drawing, and we'll go from there. So Leon Edwards. So what did Dana say? Okay, so Dana was talking about Leon Edwards, and he brought up a point that I knew it and I hadn't even thought about it. Here's that point. Okay, what he was actually talking about is he was talking about Khamzat Chimaev and Gilbert Burns and where status of that fight is. And what he said was, there's another thing in the welterweight division, by the way. I should have probably led off with that also. But he led off, he's like, a lot of times you can't book a fight for reasons that you guys don't even know about in the public. It's like sometimes, they don't want to sign, get down to the details of the numbers they don't want to sign, or you get down to the details of this, that, or the other you don't want to sign. And sometimes there are like issues that the public just straight up doesn't even know about, And he's like, and this is one of those times where there's something behind the scenes that the public has no idea about that's making it challenging to book this fight. So he was talking about that, and he was also saying that no one wants to fight Khamzat. That's one of the main reasons that he's been really challenging to book, is because no one wants to fight him. And then he was like, but I do want to point out, who signed to fight him? Leon Edwards. And he's like, Leon Edwards was all in to fight Khamzat Chimaev, and then they got COVID. And I thought about that, and I was like, I didn't even think about that, because like here's the thing. You've got all these guys that are high in the rankings that don't want to fight, lower ranked guys that are a big threat, or just lower ranked guys because they think that like those aren't good fights for them as it relates to the belt. So I've been hard on Leon on this channel as it relates to his fight game, where I'm like, man, if this guy could promote himself just a little bit. And I am actually going to retract that. I'm retracting it. Because here's the thing. Obviously, the guy knows his limitations as it comes to like talking into a microphone. But he did the other thing. There's another way to get hype. You can beat the shit out of someone who has hype, right? And he fought Nate Diaz. He got really unlucky. I mean, you could say whatever. He got unlucky, dude. I mean, he dominated that fight. Got caught at the end, which kind of overshadowed it just because it's Nate Diaz. Like, it's Nate Diaz. If he would have pulled that victory off after getting annihilated for 4 rounds and 4 minutes, and then he knocked out Leon at the end of that fight, that would have been one of the most epic moments in the history of the sport. I mean, just straight up. And because of how close it came, that overshadowed a very dominant victory for Leon. So that was unlucky. But he did agree to fight him, and he agreed to fight Khamzat Chimaev, where all these other guys that are ranked higher are like, I'm not going to fight him. No, it doesn't get me any closer to a title shot. Which is not correct. First of all, it's just not even correct. But as it relates to Leon, he knows his limitations as it relates to being kind of, sharp-tongued on the mic. So he does the other thing. He does the harder thing. He's like, I'll take fights that these other guys won't, especially the Khamzat one, man. Like, if you think that I mean, Bisping just openly admitted it. Like, he's like, look, man, I'll just be straight. If I'm in those guys' positions, I'd be like, let someone else fight him. Why? I mean, if you beat him, that's good, right? That's good for you. Because that's the thing. Let me actually just lay this out. God, my brain. Here's the equation. If you're in the position that, that these guys that are ranked higher and then you get the opportunity to fight Khamzat Chimaev, it's a very simple equation, okay? And I mean right now, not a couple fights from now, right now. If you win, right, it's all about upside versus downside, okay? So if you win, what does it mean? Nothing. They're like, what they'll say he was overrated. They're not going to say you were awesome. They're going to say he was overrated. They'll be like, wow, he just wasn't ready. Turns out he really wasn't as good as he thought. He wasn't ready. And you do not get the credit that you deserve. Where if he beats you, it's crushing to you, right? You just become a launching pad for him, and you can never, especially if it's a dominant loss. That's a hard vision for people to shake off, like, because people will remember it. Because it's Khamzat Chimaev, people will remember, Like, there's going to be way more eyeballs. People will remember. Whatever happens, they'll remember. Which is, the impression of people is all that matters. I mean, seriously, think about where Jose Aldo is right now. And like I said, I'm going to keep going back to this. The UFC did what they thought was right, which was they didn't realize how much Aldo still had in the tank. He looked good in his debut at 35, so there was kind of like a weird situation down there where they didn't have a champion, and they gave him a title shot after he basically, had like a draw against Marlon Moraes, looking good. They thought that was probably the only opportunity they were going to have to give him a title shot. And so he goes against Jan and he loses. Now, imagine if he gets the decision that he should have gotten in the Marlon Moraes fight, and then he has the subsequent fights that he had after the Jan fight. Can you imagine how excited everyone would be to watch him fight Peter Yan for the belt, or whoever, whoever he's Aljamain, whoever he's going to fight for the belt? As a matter of fact, dude, if Peter Yan is pulling out, like, I know there's some kind of complexity relating to him and Aljamain's fight, but if he actually really is not going to fight for a while, dude, give Aldo Aljamain. Absolutely. Let Peter Yan try to come take the belt from Aldo if Aldo beats Aljamain. Anyway, okay, so Leon did the hard thing. He gets respect from that, like a lot of respect for that, actually. And look, man, if he beats Kamaru Usman after the run that he's been on, I mean, dude, you're going to have a hard time saying that he's not really special. I mean, obviously anybody who beats Kamaru is really special, but like after a run like this, and then no matter how he pulls it off, that would be incredible. I mean, I think it's going to be an uphill battle for him, obviously. But crazy things happen in this sport, man. Crazy things happen in this sport. But you also have to think about, let's say he does win, right? Let's say he does win. Now, if he wins, do you understand? So, you know what? Let's do it this way. So I feel like a lot of what I do on this channel is I try to kind of make people think about the business the way it actually is, right? And the UFC is always going to play it straight as it relates to the fights. Like, they'll put the fights in place to where if it goes their way, it sets up something special. Dustin versus Conor, the first, or, the one in January, where if Conor wins, they're going to try to do Khabib 2. The whole way that they did Masvidal and Colby, where they got Masvidal 2 straight title shots, and they did that they gave him 2. They did that intentionally because if Masvidal wins, then they give Colby the title shot. If Colby would have won earlier, I'm not sure if Masvidal was necessarily in a position, and even back then, anyway. But they did that on purpose. Masvidal wins either of those, they give Colby a title shot. And then they put Colby in there, and they put Masvidal up against Leon Edwards so that they could justify a title shot in the event that Colby wins, because they want to make this super fight for a belt, right? So if Leon Edwards wins, who are they rooting for in the Colby and Masvidal fight, right? Masvidal, of course, because that sets up a grudge match. They've gotten in a fight before, and Masvidal is the biggest draw in the sport, one of them, and he gets to go fight for the title against Leon Edwards in a grudge match. Obviously, that's who they're rooting for. Okay. Now, if Kamaru wins, who are they rooting for? Kamaru wins, they're rooting for Colby, because they can do another Colby and Kamaru fight. They can't do another Kamaru and Masvidal fight. Because if you really look at the division, if Kamaru wins and Masvidal wins, then that certainly puts Khamzat on a fast track if he wins his next fight. because Kamaru will have gotten real close to clearing out the division, and so you end up with another, Colby fight, I would imagine. If Colby wins dominant fashion and Kamaru wins, I would imagine he'll probably fight Colby again. Everybody's going to buy that. But at a certain point, all these guys are going to run up against Khamzat. That's just the bottom line. In my opinion, everybody's on borrowed time. Everyone. This is not. I'm not saying this as a shot at anybody. I mean, Kamaru has a good shot at beating him. I think, of course. Like Kamaru's a monster, dude. Like if you think that like Khamzat's gonna run through Kamaru like he ran through Li Jingying, you're crazy. But everybody can be beat. Anybody can be beat. And Khamzat has that thing of like unshakable confidence that's, it's like it's not like most guys. Like, everybody who's a fighter is confident. But he's got that thing. Like, he's got that thing that you look at, you're like, man, of course, if you haven't seen any fighter even give him a moderate bit of resistance, then of course your impression of him is going to be that he's unbeatable. But thus far, he's unbeatable. He could have beat every single one of those guys that he's fought thus far in the UFC in the same night. Really. He really could have. He could have fought them all in the same night. He would have beat them all and probably come out totally unscathed. So just because he's fighting inferior opponents, that doesn't mean that he's not potentially an all-time great that's coming up the ladder. This is what it looks like. Every single all-time great was a contender at one point. This is what that looks like. This is exactly what that looks like. He's more dominant than Khabib was even at this point. Khabib was rattling off wins, but Khabib had fights, that were at least like semi-competitive a little bit. I mean, mostly only against that juice head. But like, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the welterweight division, they need to do the things they're going to do before you get Khamzat in the mix. But man, if Kamaru keeps winning and you get a Kamaru versus Khamzat fight, good Lord. Good Lord. Anyway, so if you've made it this far, I'm going to say this. I have something I'm going to show you guys. I don't know when. Like, I'm not really sure what the right context is to do it, because I just feel like on this channel, I make this channel, the experience of kind of being a subscriber and a viewer of this channel, not just about like thinking about MMA. It's more like I'm just really open with my life. Like this is where I'm at. These are things that have happened to me or things that I've done, whatever. And one of the things that I've shared a million times was that where I'm at right now in comparison to where I was in 2017 is you can't be in any more opposite positions. Like, my life completely fell apart in 2017 in ways that, like, we lost everything. I had no options, like none, no options at all. Zero. Lost everything. Built a multi-million-dollar company. Had it basically taken from me. Scammed. Acquired, like, and then, oh my God, it's just like, and then the entire industry ran up against regulation and all the opportunities just disappeared. And I had, what's my experience? What am I going to go do? And I've got a wife and 3 kids. I got a brand new, we had Georgia right in the middle of that experience. And I found this thing the other night, or last night actually, which was a video, an MMA video that I did back then. As a matter of fact, I'll just put it in here if I remember. I found this MMA, so I did actually start this channel, started doing MMA stuff during that period. I only did, a handful of videos. I didn't really understand how to do this yet. And I was so depressed that I couldn't commit to anything. It's the worst time of my life by 1,000 miles. I wouldn't wish it on anyone. I would wake up and every single thing I did felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I was so depressed, dude. I couldn't do anything. I mean, that's not true. What I did was I just tried to get things going again, which I did, obviously. But I watched one of the videos that I did when I posted it then, and it's absolutely indiscernible from videos I do now. So I'm watching it last night. I look at when I remember exactly when I recorded those and when I posted them. And it was dead center of that experience where I was in the worst place a person could ever be in. And I'm watching those videos. I'm watching them and I look identical. I sound identical. My mannerisms are identical.
Like there's no room for interpretation. Like go look at those stats that are floating around. Go watch the fight. Pick any round that says, Pacquiao landed more punches, except for the 2 that he actually landed more punches in the 8th and 9th. But go pick any of the earlier ones where it says that he landed more punches and just watch the round. Tell me I'm wrong.
To where I don't even know how to interpret it. Like I literally, I'm being totally serious. I don't know how to interpret that because I know how different I felt. I felt like it's the worst time of my life. I was miserable. And somehow, when I'm on camera, it's exactly the same. Identical. You would think that I recorded it yesterday. I'm serious. I don't know what that means. I don't know how to interpret that at all. But it really, it shook me up where I was like, whoa. I don't know if you've ever gone through real trauma. Like real trauma, like emotional trauma, you would think the way that you're interpreting how you feel, you would think that you would be able to see it externally. Like you would think that it would be obvious to other people, because I felt like, of course, everybody knows like my life is over. So what's the point of pretending like anything's going well? And then I look at the video, I'm like, that is so bananas to me. Anyway, I don't even know if I'm going to leave this in, but very bizarre experience, man. Anyway, that's what I've got. So subscribe to the channel if you like, ring the bell, etc. Peace.